from Math 113. I thought I'd do just a quick recap of what we did in our Zoom class today for those of you who either weren't there for it or who want to, maybe miss something and want to come back and review what we did again. So, what we did first is we just kind of went around and talked a little bit, saw how everyone was doing, and I also went over a few minor features of Zoom that people needed to know, how to mute and unmute themselves, that kind of thing. So if you are on a Zoom class again and you weren't today, and you're a little confused about that, just make sure you ask me, okay? There were a couple of people or groups who had not presented the fraction activities the last week we were together. So if you have not done that yet, please make sure you email me and let me know. And there'll be a few options for that. You can either present on Zoom one day this week or next week, or you can videotape yourself presenting it and send it to me, or you can present it to someone at your house. It could even be your cat or your dog. And then write up, who you presented it to, how it went, what your activity was, because if I haven't seen it yet, and then send that in to me. Okay, so you have one of those, and then for everybody, there's the reflection that's due by the end of this week. Your due date is Sunday, so by Sunday night, I'd like that reflection in. That is in Blackboard. There's a new folder in Blackboard for this week, and so that reflection has been moved into there. Okay, when you do the reflection, if you already did it, that's fine. If you haven't done it yet, please put it in a document like a Microsoft Word or Google Docs document and then attach that to your email. The formatting is just a little bit easier, especially if I decide to print them out rather than typing it right into the email. So then what we did is we talked about adding and subtracting. And we started out talking about some of the ways that kids learn to add. This was based on that reading that I had you do the week that I was out sick. So we talked about how kids add things. It's a little bit I'm going to write this a little bit backwards to the way we did it in class. But let's say we're trying to help kids add 2 plus 4. Okay, so we're going to go through kind of a few steps from simplest to more sophisticated, how young children will add these things. So the first sort of step is that if you had 2 toys and then 4 more toys or marbles or whatever it was, and you asked a young child to add them, they would most likely just count all of them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so they would count all of the objects. All right. Excuse me. Going up one level of sophistication, another child may start out here and say, okay, I know I have 2, so I'm starting with 2, and then I can count 3, 4, 5, 6. So we call this counting on, starting with one number and then counting on from that number. The child did not need to count these 2. They knew I'm starting with 2, going back to that cardinality, right? And then 3, 4, 5, 6, again, knowing with cardinality that what I get to here is my total. Then the next level may be to count on from the larger number. So then a student in the next step might say, well, it's easier to start with 4 and then just count 5, 6. There are fewer things there that I need to count. And you would do the same thing. If I told you that one bin had 98 marbles and one bin had 6 marbles, you're not going to say 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, right? You're not going to count 98 things. You're going to start here and then count up 6 more if you have to count it in your head. So we do the same thing. So counting on and then counting on from the larger number. And then finally with the last step here is make a 10 or make something easy. Now with these they don't add up to 10, but let's say I had 8 plus 5. Okay, and you'll see this if you are working at all with elementary students or in an elementary classroom, you'll see that this idea of making a 10 is really something they stress in the elementary classrooms, okay? And sometimes people who, don't really understand the purpose of the Common Core and that kind of thing are a little upset by this, But we do this all the time in our heads if you think about it. If you're adding two things, you kind of group, bundle. So the idea is to get the students very familiar with what makes 10. Well, they know that 8 plus 2 makes 10. So I made a 2, so here's 8 plus 2, and then you're taking apart 5. So if 5 is 2 plus 3, right, I made a 10 out of here, and then 3 more to make 13. And then also making a 10, but also making a 10 from the larger number. Okay, so again, starting with the larger number, you'll have to pull fewer things in to make your 10 versus starting with the smaller number. So that's kind of a quick overview of some of the easier to more sophisticated ways that kids may count. Again, this isn't that reading that I had you do the week I was out, so you can kind of go back in there and look at that for adding and subtracting. Then the new thing that we did this time was we started talking about adding and subtracting, what we call our standard algorithms, just meaning that the standard way we add and subtract, right? So when we add, usually we talk about carrying, if we have to carry a 1 over. And that is what we're doing, but as you probably know by now that I really don't like the idea of just giving a way of doing something. Here's what we do, the carry the 1, that's it, right? I want you to know and to relate to your students why we do the things we do. So in order to do that, we used these manipulatives that we had used in class, the cubes, the units, the rods, the flats, okay? And I also, just to show you, have this paper that goes along with that. So this is great for your students. You could have this, you could put these, on it physically, or you could just also put the numbers in here. That again shows if I have 427, it shows that they mean 4 hundreds, 2 tens, 7 ones. The 7 here is not the same as if I had a 7 here. So this paper is something that you may see in the future. So I kind of just did it up here. And the cubes, the big, if you saw on the end of the paper, that's taking 10 flats, right? 10 hundreds would make 1,000. They're the big cubes. I think I had them one day. I didn't bring one of those home with me. But we're not going to do anything in thousands right now, so I'm not going to put that up here. Okay, so we have flats, rods, units. Sorry, I know that overhead light is kind of glaring right here, but it says units. So if I had 36, so 36 would be 3 tens and 6 ones, right? So I could, for example, I'm just going to do little dots for the units, but this is 3 tens and 6 ones, and then I want to add to that 28, which would be 2 tens and 8 ones. So 2 tens and 8 ones, okay? When we add these, let's see what's really happening. So if I were to just say 36 plus 28, we normally add, carry, right? We'll do that in a minute. But let's see what's really happening behind the scenes. Well, when I look at my units, excuse me, and I'm going to start here in the ones place. When I look at those units, we know that in any certain place value, we can only have 9 of something. Once we have 10, it has to go into the next place value. So if we then want to, just like we were talking about that students are really good at these days, make a 10. Okay, so I bundled these 6 with 4 of these. Those are going to make a 10. You can show your students with these little cubes that snap together, or you could even snap 10 of them together to show that that is where the rod comes from. So that goes over here. That makes another rod. So 10 ones makes 1 10. Okay. What I have left here is 4. I have 4 ones left. Now I have 6 tens. Okay. That's what we're doing up here. When we do our standard algorithm, we say 6 and 8 is 14. We put down the 4 and carry the 1. But again, let's think about why. Let's make sure our students know why. So we put the 4 here because this one up here is now 10 of these. Anytime I have 10 of one unit, that's 1 of the next unit over. We know that. If you have a pocket full of $1 bills, you can turn 10 of them in and get one $10 bill. If you have a pocket full of $10 bills, you can turn 10 10s in to get 100. So that's really what's happening here. I've taken 10 of these and bundled them to make a 10. Then I would add these together. Okay, so that's really what we did. Then I asked everyone on the Zoom class to just come up with an example on their own to draw out, just like this, just 2 things that would add. I especially kind of was hoping that some people would do something where maybe we carry from the 10s to the 100s, that kind of thing. So you can kind of play around with that, get used to drawing your example. And then we are just about done. And so there are 2 things I'm going to ask you to do for Wednesday. 2 problems of the same type. So what I want you to do is the same idea as this, but I want you to do subtraction, okay? So how does this relate to subtraction, especially to borrowing? So I would like you to do 2 problems, 42 minus 39 and 104 minus 87. Okay. Now I'm writing it here. I'm also going to send out I'll put a little document on Blackboard with this also. Okay. But I want you to draw a picture. I want you to show what's happening, just like on mine. I made the 10, put an arrow over to show that was the new rod. Explain it in words, okay? If you're not going to be on the Zoom on Wednesday, I would ask that you email it to me. There are a couple ways you can do the picture. You can draw it on paper and take a picture. You can also, if you have like a paint program and you can use that with your mouse or your touchpad, if that's easier, you can do something like that. Also, you can be creative with probably lots of technology that I don't even know about that you do. But either way, if you are going to be on the Zoom call, you can just have it there to show. We noticed today that, just pen on paper, pencil on paper is a little hard to see. So maybe if you have a marker, Mariko had a little dry erase board that seemed to work really well. So that might be an option also. Okay, so that's what we did. So this is an activity to do by Wednesday, and I will be in touch over email. All right, I hope to see you on Wednesday. And if you are not going to be on Zoom, if your schedule is not going to allow for it either time this week, then just send me an email, not only with your answer to this, but also just to let me know that you're out there and getting my emails and still keeping up with the class. All right? Thanks, guys.